Hello, Cypress Village residents. I'm Nancy Rochester, a member of your Residents Advisory Council Nominating Committee. Today, we would like to introduce the candidates that will be running for the 3 open seats on the council. They are Bill Chatfield, Louise Fontecchio, Jim Gendreau, Bob Kyle, and Carol Luckenbach. The electronic voting begins Monday, October 17th and ends Friday, October 28th. There is 1 vote per email address. If you share an email, one of you will vote by paper ballot, which is voted on November 4, 6, and 8. The 8th is right before the November 8th community meeting in Egret Hall. The winners will be announced at the end of the meeting.
My name is Bill Chatfield, and my wife and I live in the Towers here at Cypress Village. One of the best decisions I've made, other than marrying my wife Pat, was moving here. And we've been here for 3 years, and it's been wonderful. After I went to school, I got out of high school, I went to college, and after that I went in the Navy, and after that I got a job with IBM, and I worked with them for 32 years. I was in Poughkeepsie, and Kingston, and Gaithersburg, and then Boca Raton, where I finished up. After I finished working with IBM, I got into volunteering. The first job was a recording for the blind and dyslexic, but that didn't last long because a couple of weeks afterwards they hired me. We did a lot of things at church. I was on the vestry. We did Sunday school, vacation Bible school. My wife did the newspaper, and we did pamphlets and booklets and things like that. During that time, I got involved in the in prison ministry. Thank you, Father Mike, my old priest. I did that from 2001 to 2019 when COVID said, no, you're not going to do it anymore. One of the things you learn doing prison ministry is how to talk with people and how to listen to people. You've got about 30 seconds to make the connection, and if you don't make it, you're done. So my job here, and if I become a member of this committee, is to listen, to learn, and to do my best to communicate what I've been told to the committee and to whoever else needs to have it. Keeping in mind, we're an advisory committee, not an action committee. So, if I'm elected, I will try to listen, I will try to learn, I will try to help. And if I'm not elected, I'll still be around here causing problems. So, that's my story. I'm sticking to it, and stay tuned for further developments.
Hi, I'm Louise Fontecchio, and I'm presently on the Residents Advisory Council, Chair of the Activities Committee. And I hope that you will give me the chance to continue on the Residents Advisory Council. I've served for the last year and have had a great time. It's been a fun year, but a difficult year to be on the advisory committee or advisory council, because at the beginning of this year we had so many problems that we had to dig out of, and we've successfully dug out of a lot of them, I think. Obviously, we had the transition in the activities team, and I had a ball working with Katie when she was our activities director or CLS director, and then Lisa came in, and it's been fun getting to know her and helping her get to know our Cypress Village culture and our people and what our residents want. And so that's been a fun thing to do, but it's been kind of difficult at times because anytime you have a change, it's difficult. But I do hope you'll give me the chance to continue serving on the Residents Advisory Council. As you probably know by now, I was an attorney in Nashville before I moved to Florida, and have 2 daughters, one that lives in Seattle, one that lives here in Jacksonville. I've taught law, I've taught bridge, I've worked with my church group, I've worked with Girl Scouts, I've worked with my neighborhood association. Before I became a member of the Residents Council here, I was a library volunteer. I taught some bridge classes when I first moved here because the building was shut down at that time for COVID, and it was a good way for me to get to know some people and for some people to be able to get out of their apartments and do something. So that was a good time. And then, as I said, this last year we've done so much. We've changed the activities committee somewhat because in the past the activities committee served as an advisory body, but we're not terribly active in helping CLS do things. one of the things I wanted us to do was become very active in helping with things. So back in January, Katie had the game day, which we helped her organize, and then, or the activities day, I guess it was. And then from there, we branched off and have started having the game day a couple of times a month. And we try to have members present for that to kind of help people get going. And now that it's going so well, we don't always have somebody there, but at the beginning we tried to always do that. We try to have people at most of the activities so that we can help with those. We had the root beer float thing a couple of weeks ago, and we had people there to help with that. Just all kinds of activities that are going on that are fun for the residents, but they're also fun for my committee members. And I want to thank my committee members for helping me have a successful year, and I think we did have a successful year. So again, I hope you will let me continue. I feel like that we have a good team on the Residents Advisory Council. Always open to and listening and wanting your suggestions, and always make sure that they get brought to the committee meetings, get brought to Lisa. And I feel like a lot of the activities we're now doing are things that came straight out of resident suggestions. Game day being one of the main ones. Some of the lunch bunch activities that we're doing, we've gone from trying to have 20 people in a crowd and not being able to get in to having smaller groups. Dinner bunch is the same way. It's 2 groups now. So a lot of the things we've done have been because they're things that you have asked for. So I hope we can continue doing that together. Thank you very much.
Cypress Village residents. You know, I hope you've read my bio, but I want to highlight some things from my background. I grew up in a small town in northern Maine where French was a spoken language. I learned English in school and spoke French in the household till I was 10 years old. However, education is the backbone of my career for information technology and working in personnel. I lived in Metropolitan District of Columbia till we moved to Cypress Village on Silkvine almost 11 years ago. After approximately 4 years, my late wife was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I cared for Judy. With help from CNAs, I moved Judy to receive outstanding memory care. And I moved in an apartment in the Towers. And subsequently, Judy received palliative and hospice support. Judy died 2.5 years ago and was buried at the Jacksonville National Cemetery. And I visit and talk to her monthly. Now I want to talk about what I've done here at Cypress Village. My bio states, and I'm going to quote, I have been active with Alzheimer's Group, Grief Support Group, Florida Life Care Residents Association, or FLICRA, at both the local and the Florida State Executive Committee levels. I'm chair of the Veterans Committee, and I co-chair the Cypress Village Information Technology Committee, and I support many other activities. I was appointed to serve on the Resident Advisory Council, or RAC for short, and to chair the Veterans Committee. So what have I learned during that appointed term? The key word, the first key word is residents. It represents all residents of Cypress Village. The second key term is advisory. Yes, it advises based on all residents, not just based on one or a few residents. The third key term is council. As council or committee, you must work together as a team to reach consensus for what is best for all residents, or at least the majority of residents. What's operative here? Consensus and majority. Those are the key words. So what does Jim Jandro want to do? I want the opportunity to be elected to passionately continue to represent your views on your resident advisory committee. Thank you.
I'm Bob Kyle. I'm running for the council, probably in the role of an engineering consultant, which is what I am, an engineer. What I'm going to do is make some comments in addition to what I've submitted to everyone in terms of a written resume. So I'll start with some of my academic credentials. 3 engineering degrees, including Virginia Tech and University of Virginia, plus a diploma from the National War College, which is sort of a Harvard version of training for flag officers. Nancy and I met when we were both juniors in college. Got engaged and got married the same weekend that we both graduated. That was back in 1964. So we've been married 58 years. Still a lucky man, I suppose. Next thing I want to talk about is what engineers do. They're problem solvers. You face a problem, and you know, any given problem has got a whole lot of different ways that you can solve it. Each one has its own cost-benefit type of analysis, and there are different alternatives depending on what your objectives may be to solve it, and your time and how much money you've got to fix the problem. But every problem has a solution. What you got to make sure of is that you don't have a solution in search of a problem. Some of the background things I've worked on: before coming to Cypress, we've been here about 3 years. We lived over at Marina San Pablo. That's a condo right across from Mayo on the Intercoastal. I was on the board there, and I engineered several different projects. One was the pool cracks, where I actually recommended we drain the pool and use a special type of epoxy to fill the cracks. We filled it all, cured it all, repainted. To my knowledge, the pool still is not leaking. That's pretty good. That was about 10 years ago. In terms of more of a residential situation, we lived at a plantation, which is a subdivision South Ponte Vedra, and I did a design there for quite an acoustic reduction in the 19th hole, just like the Loon's Nest, a bar and eating area. So I devised a system to reduce the acoustic noise in there, and tiles and all this kind of stuff. But in the end, the ladies decided that they'd just go with acoustic drapes. So that's just a case where you always got to consider everyone's needs and objectives and have a sort of an agreement as to how you're going to proceed. And that's the same way that I work with the Residents Council. You got to take things under advisement. I think most of my interfaces will be with the operations management, you know, here at Cypress, because we're talking both the houses and the apartments. Some things I'm concerned about is what I call communications. It seems like every week there's communications on everything in Cypress. I mean, from COVID, the dining menus, to everything else, but I don't see anything responsive to maintenance. Like we'll have alarms that go off during the week. In the apartments, a given floor, they go off and they last, but no one ever comes back to say what happened or why. I had a JSO officer knock on my door a few weeks ago about a missing person. We're all concerned about that, but again, no follow-up. There's a book here that Cypress puts out, the Residents Council, Advisory Council, and in here, there's probably 2 pages every month on reports on what's going on the operations side of coordinating things with Cypress. Very good, very detailed. I don't know why some of these notes can't be incorporated into the weekly type of newsletter we get. I'm also very much interested in not only safety, which I've been talking about, but security. Everyone's driven into the front gate area, and you've seen that pole there with the cameras on it. I'm told that those record license plates number going and coming, but is it working at night? Are they IR sensitive? Those are the type of things I'm interested in and how we're maintaining things. There's so much lawlessness going on out there today that maybe we need to consider about having a JSO officer just patrol on some random basis once or twice a week. I know we did that over at Marina San Pablo. It was very effective. I've drained on and on here, so I guess that concludes my video here. I hope it supplements the written version, and I thank you.
Good morning. I'm Carol Luckenbach. It's a privilege to be here today. I have essentially had 3 career paths in my life, all of them involving sensitivity to other people's needs, decision making, and organizational skills. My first and longest career was as a school social worker, guidance counselor, special ed teacher, and then special ed guidance counselor. That was a long haul, 30 years, and I did burn out at the end of it. Sort of parallel, I decided that it would be fun to run and open the first bed and breakfast in Jacksonville. It was across the river at the foot of Cherry Street, which I did for 16 years. Again, that takes a lot of skills. You hire people, fire people, do food, do reservations, keep in line with all the government regulations, etc. It was a real treat, and I loved it. And probably parallel to that also, I have an interest in tennis, do play a lot, but I started as a US Open umpire for many, many years. Then the more fun thing was, and many of you remember, the Amelia Island WTA tournament, and I was the chief umpire for that for 12 years. And that really involved food, everything for about 50 people, hiring and firing, accommodations, skill levels. It was fun, but hard work, and I enjoyed every bit of it. Also with the tennis, I was the grievance chairman for the state of Florida for officials, and that meant dealing with some really heady situations. I reflect on Steffi Graf's father, not affectionately, but things that had to be dealt with. As a part of that, we went to the National Committee and did that for a few years. I hope this demonstrates sensitivity and ability to problem solve and leadership ability and a let's get the job done attitude. I would be proud to serve on the Resident Advisory Council.